Welcome to Economic Forum, where we discuss various issues affecting our economy in Zimbabwe. My name is John Masogo. Globalization is like a world supermarket, and for you to be noticed as a product, you have to be properly branded. And this is what happens to countries or nations. You have to be identified, you have to be visible, and you have to be noticed. And this is what I'm going to be discussing with my guest today, who is Tare Munzara, a nation branding specialist or expert. Welcome to Economic Forum.
Oh, thank you so much, sir.
Yes.
This is my second time here.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming. And things have changed.
Wow.
We may have talked about nation branding 3 years ago, 2 years ago, but there's need for us to look at where we are now. So, but just to remind the viewers, what is country or nation branding?
Basically, nation branding is a process whereby a country actually states its position in terms of how it's want to be viewed internally and externally by ensuring that it gives products and services which easily resonate with a particular market for the return on investment on trade, tourism, etc., etc.
Yes. Do all countries do that, or it just happens by chance that people can actually say this country is branded this way, that way, without it being done consciously?
Well, basically, the challenge about nation branding is that everybody's involved. It's not about the president or a minister or a particular organization. Everybody is involved in the process. So you find that branding evolves. Everybody's contribution contributes towards how people feel about our nation brand internally as people and globally in terms of our visitors and our neighbors, etc., etc. So if you wake up in the morning and you nicely cut your grass and you paint your home and you put a nice little letterbox at your house, people view your house as a very organized house. But your neighbor could have a different setup. So you'd find that when somebody travels to your neighborhood, they say it's a nice place. Another person will be like, no, that's not a nice place because I've seen Shantilukin houses, So that's the problem that we have with nation branding, because nobody can actually control the totality of how, the direction that we can take as a country.
While we're talking about nation branding, this also applies to us as individuals. You can actually brand yourself. For instance, you are in the Zimbabwe Tourism Authority, ZTA, and I'm sure that is what you're contributing to that, and we'll hear more about that. But tell us about the benefits of having to be branded, to be properly branded as a nation or as a country.
Well, I think the most important thing besides talking about revenue is identity. Every country must have an identity. Once you have an identity, you're then now able to sell that identity for the return on investment on whatever you want to return on, right? So you'd find that the benefits are beyond what anybody can think. So you'd find that when it comes to branding a country, you want to retain revenue. You want international friendships. You want people to view you in a better light. You want investors to come. You want tourists to come. You want people to actually say, I can travel to this country for shopping. I can travel to this country for healthcare reasons. So the benefits themselves, they are various. But ultimately, nation branding is what we call the new economic, the new economic platform for countries to actually retain a very good revenue platform contributing to the GDP.
Some of the brands, the country brands, actually date back to history. Is this something that you encourage, that you look at your past and see how it influences your future, what people remember you for or about?
No, it's very important to look in the past, but I'm always saying that when you want to go into the future, you can't look back at your past. Your past is important as a reference point to remind you of something. But once you say you want to brand yourself as an individual, a company, or a country, you have to look forward right into the future. So the challenge we have is that, like I said, the brand ownership is national. Everybody owns the brand. So through that process, the brand goes through evolution. Right? You can see the changes in terms of our own local currency. How the currency changed from the 1980s up until 2022, and at every juncture, people had a different feeling towards it, and that gave an impact on the brand. So definitely, it's very important to look back. But what's important is also to create a much better future. you know.
As experts, you also have an index that you use. What is contained in that index that we can then look at and say, if you have this, that, and that, you are therefore a better brand, or you produce a good brand?
Okay, the brand index contains a whole lot of things, which are, for example, governance. When you try to rank a country, you look at how well governed it is. What's the political system? What are the structures? You look at its culture. You look at its natural resources. You look at its livability, socially. You look at its tourism. You look at its economy. So all those things are what we call part of the brand index. So when we now calculate to say we want to rank these countries in whatever order, we use that index to say this country is number one in governance, this country's culture is number 4, this country's living expenses at number 6 or number 7, its economy is at this particular stage. So that's the country brand index. So you'd find that every country is known for its own uniqueness and its own identity. For example, let's talk about United States. Very controversial, I know, but United States is known for entertainment, fun. That's the feeling that first comes to somebody's mind. You think about a good economy, you think about the good life, you think about entertainment. When you think about Japan,
the result of that is because of what you see.
It's
in
what
the media and how they portray themselves.
It's how they portray themselves. Let me tell you something. This is what happened when the Americans wanted to take over the world. Their structure, their policy was different from the British. The British were here physically, right? The Americans only used the media. They didn't knock and say, guys, visit America, invest in America. They just used the media. And that is why we are able to say, I can actually travel to America. I love this particular product.
Just mention 2 African examples, Tare.
Well, currently, if you look at Southern Africa, right now South Africa is a go-to country in terms of stable economy, in terms of great living conditions, in terms of jobs also. So South Africa, in terms of Africa right now, is a hit. But also to mention President Kagame's Rwanda, that's one place that every other country now around the world, when they look at Africa now, they're looking at what's happening in Rwanda.
Tare Munzara, I'll stop you there for this segment. That's Tare Munzara, who is our guest today. He's a nation branding specialist. How should a nation brand itself so that it is attractive economically? That's what we're discussing here with Tare. So join us in the second segment of Economic Forum. We are now in the second segment of Economic Forum, where today we are talking about nation branding. Others call it country branding, where a country brands itself so that it is attractive economically. And to discuss that, we have Tare. And Tare Munzara is a nation branding expert, and he has been sharing with us about what it is and how other countries have been viewed, especially regarding how they've placed themselves. But where are we as Zimbabwe? Probably you can also tell us where we've come from with our different brands or one brand.
Where we are right now is that we're at a place where we are confused, unfortunately. We don't know what is what. The biggest challenge that we're having is that we are not coming up together as a country to say, this is the direction that we would love to take, right? Do we have any ideas of people that can actually give us ideas when it comes to this particular sector, this particular thing? So we're not collaborating. So hence there's a whole lot of confusion on the marketplace. Because if you ask me, right, you ask me the question to say, where are we? Frankly speaking, we're actually at a very confusing place. So which is actually an opportunity. I don't see that as a negative thing. It's actually an opportunity for us to say, as a nation, let's start to have programs that we are able to come up together and create the brand that we want, right? My message to people that are viewing, is that you don't need to wait for the government to brand the country. It's not just the government's work; it's everybody's work. Government is there to make sure that your idea functions, right? And we must come together to make sure that we begin that process. But if you look back, right, in terms of, where we began, we began as this mighty country. The days of our founding father Robert Mugabe, Jane Cormo, etc., etc. We began as this powerful African nation. The British feared us, the Americans feared us. The world was flocking here to travel. The world was flocking here for trade. There was so much good international relations back in the days. But as the years went by, because we are an independent country and we don't want another country to impose conditions in how we run our country. Definitely other countries had a contribution in terms of making sure that our country's brand image, goes downwards, that sort of thing. But I think we kept on holding on to that image, that vision. But at the same time, just because we are not a very powerful media empire, the countries with powerful media empires spend so much time and money destroying us to make sure that our brand is not attractive anymore. But frankly speaking, I think our brand is a very attractive brand. As complicated and as confusing as it is, there is so much opportunity, And
so who should begin this process? I think you've spelled it out very clearly that it's not necessarily government itself, but it's in us. We are the owners of the brand or the future brand or what it is. What should be the starting point? Is it the churches? Is it the youth? Is it the corporates and so forth?
Well, I'll tell you a story.
Yes.
So I sat with my buddy. I was like, dude, you know what? I do nation branding, and I'm telling people, let's brand our country, let's do all sort of things.
Yes.
But the first thing that's important is when people come to my house, they must be like, wow, this place. When I serve them tea or lunch or whatever, they must be like, wow, this is great. This is a great service, right? So I realized that the first place to brand is my home, including myself.
Yes.
So when you come to my house, the lawn, the yard is neat, there are flowers, the service when you get into the house, it's clean, nicely decorated. And for me, that was a starting point. But first of all, I had to configure my mind. You see, everything is mental, right? So I had to configure my mind and say, you know what? For me to actually say I want to have a better country, I must become a better individual. I can't preach change if I'm not changing. I can't expect change if I'm not contributing to change. So that's really the starting point. People must first of all change their mindset. It starts within you. Then when you go when you go outside there to the world, you're able to give people good service. You're able to ensure that you brand yourself, your community, your family in a very good way.
In fact, Terry, what you are saying is a very important message to those who are dealing with the public, including our visitors. What does a visitor get as an impression when they're at the airport, at the hotels, or just meeting you in the street and asking about directions and so forth? At times we fall short there. Say something about some of the areas where we're supposed to be more welcoming than we're doing now.
I think that our port entries, our hotels, tourism sites, and tourism products themselves are a point where we must give the absolute best customer service. To make sure that our visitors feel welcome and they feel at home. And we must be people with integrity when we deal with our visitors, But some of these people are not just here to visit to view Victoria Falls or to go to Masringo. They're here to invest, and they'll be analyzing some of our behavior. So we must be always at our best at the time. I always say that you don't know who's in the audience, and you just don't know who's watching. So you must always be at your best.
Who is that invisible mentor or visible mentor who should be making sure that all of us, not only Tari, all of us actually are well branded? Because you come from a home, and if you have not been taught, this is what you do, you're a bit careless in how you handle your visitors, or when you go out, you just use your qualification that I'm this and I'm here just to work, and that courtesy is not there and so forth. Tell us about the importance of being properly mentored across the board.
Well, I think when we talk about mentorship now, I'm talking about Vision 2030, His Excellency's vision. national development strategies. I think that's a document that we all can actually, read and say this is a plan that we all can follow. But now, I think that what now His Excellency and the rest of us must do in government is that we must ensure that we impart that wisdom to the rest of the general public. We must create programs that mentor people in terms of just personal branding, in terms of family branding, corporate branding, that sort of thing. So we must ensure that we roll out those programs, the sooner the better, so that we're able to capture these, people whilst they're still fresh, especially the young generation. I'll give an example which you may know.
A very brief example.
Well, Adolf Hitler, I call him the king of branding. Right. Despite whatever he did, he actually programmed the subconscious mind of the Germans. He wrote his Mein Kampf. That's why you see that Germany was very successful in that particular period. He wanted to conquer the world. Economically, Germany was doing very well. Why? Because Adolf Hitler had a plan, and he made sure that there was mentorship of that particular plan.
Tare Munzara, thank you very much for that point. You'll continue with that in the third and final segment. Today we are discussing nation branding, and Tare Munzara here, who is a nation branding expert, is giving us different examples. Also, he has spelled out that we can do better. Where we are is not that attractive, but we can do better and brand ourselves in a way that we can be attractive, especially for economic development. So join us in the third and final segment of Economic Forum. We are now in the third and final segment of Economic Forum, where today we are talking about country or nation branding. And our guest is Tare Munzara, who is a board member of ZTA and also among the 100 most influential under 40s. But on this program, he has come as an expert. He has come in his individual capacity. Tare, social media. Is it helping Zimbabwe to brand itself, to be well known for good things and for opportunities?
Well, when you mentioned social media, the first thing I did was laugh.
Yes.
But social media, it's a very interesting topic, and it's also an emotional one. We have people that are gallivanting, using their influence on social media to depict our country in the worst way possible. Instead of us celebrating what we achieve, the small little wins, because winning is not about big things. It's these small things where people just trying to bash the efforts of government or the efforts of other people. So I think social media is actually, people on social media are letting us down. They're actually posting negative things, and these things are read globally because anyone can access content from Zimbabwe. Anyone from, whether you're from Russia, China, whatever, you're able to access our content. And I think social media, there has to be a way that we are able to control what we say about our country, especially on the public forum. And I think there should be
By control, you mean controlling ourselves, or you mean there should be legislation?
There should be legislation in place. Yeah. I mean, definitely, I believe in freedom of rights, that sort of thing. But loving your country, you can tell the truth, but bashing your country is another thing altogether. Somebody goes to some conference in Sweden or whatever country, they get there, they start complaining about the country. I mean, really, what kind of image are they trying to project? Then they post it on their social media. Then they've got thousands and thousands of followers saying, hey, those sort of things. Fair and fine. Not everybody can be happy. That's the honest truth about it. But it's how we should make sure that we control what we say in a very mature way. If you've got a good point, put it across in a very professional way.
Even if it's critical, where you're telling the truth about what's not going right.
Yeah, whether you're telling the truth. So we should stop complaining, stop being proactive. Because you see that the good thing about change is that change just doesn't come via the elections. Change starts with you. And if you want to change the country, don't demand change if you have not changed. And we've got a lot of people that have not changed. And they use their social media to bash our nation brand, which is not a very good thing. I think about years back, there was a Twitter war between Zimbabwe and Uganda, where Ugandans were saying Zimbabweans, whilst we're opening factories, Zimbabweans are opening dustbins, that sort of thing. And you'd find that that war caused a whole lot of issues in terms of degrading our nation brand, just because we are posting the wrong things on social media.
How about our diasporans? How can they be our ambassadors? Because we have quite a lot of family and friends in the diaspora who are actually our ambassadors. How can they improve our brand?
I think the diasporans, having programs, cultural programs, things in relation with our culture, in relation with, the nation itself. I think that's the best that they can do. And another very critical thing is exporting our brands to those diaspora markets. You'd find that every country you go, there's a Chinese restaurant. If you go to other countries, you will not find a Zimbabwean restaurant. You find China is there, Italy has restaurants, but Zimbabwe doesn't have restaurants in different places. So I think diasporans,
even meals themselves.
Even meals. So diasporans they should just not look at just being an ambassador, but also contribute economically. Talk to a local brand to establish it in the United Kingdom. That sort of thing. And I think that's the level that diasporans should play at.
How can we brand our economy itself so that when we talk about it, or even on social media, where it's not only about posting billions of dollars or trillions saying this is where we are?
Well, you know what, the economy itself, really, it's everybody's, like I'm referring to everybody's responsibility. You are the economy, he's the economy, everybody's the economy. If you come up with a brilliant idea, right, and that idea grows within the national system, the next thing, we have to start exporting that particular brand to other countries, and that assists us to actually earn foreign currency. So people look at the economy in a very bad way. People must look at an economy and say, if I have a dream, my dream must be in Portugal. My dream must be in South Africa, not just looking at the local framework, that sort of thing. So I think
just like the music.
Yeah, just like the music. Yeah. I'm always, what? That's a very emotional thing. This is the thing. A foreign artist comes through, they're paid hundreds of thousands. A local artist is paid $100. Why is there a gap? Right. A local artist goes to, let's say, Australia. When they get there, they're not performing to Australians, they're performing to other Zimbabweans. That is where the problem is. We're just not globalizing our products and our services. We are still localizing them. Whether you sell your meal in London, who's buying is the Zimbabwean.
Yeah.
You're not selling to the British people, you're not selling to the Scottish people. So the economy issue, really, we have to start being, industrious in terms of the path as a country where we want to go. But now, ultimately, if you look at our economy, we've got a lot of dealers in the system, forex dealing, car dealing, and this is actually degrading the level of thought in terms of inspiring the young ones, because every young kid now is inspiring to say, how will I get the money? I'm going to do it.
They want to be rich in a few days.
They want to be rich in a few days.
They're
not being creative. So we must be creative, create things, and we ship them all over the world. And that is how Zimbabwe can conquer.
Tare Munzara, I would like to stop you there. We were talking today about how we can brand ourselves as a nation, and Tare here was giving us quite a variety of examples. So as I said at the beginning, globalization makes us part of a very big supermarket, and for us to be picked out there, we must have a good brand. Thank you very much for coming to Economic Forum.
Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.
Yes, and also on behalf of the production crew, this is John Masu.